Alright, I don't normally do these kinds of videos, and frankly it may even get me in trouble, but I don't exactly care. And this isn't normally a topic nor side of YouTube stuff that I normally address because it's full of drama. And in fact, one of my sources of stuff that I'm replying to is an episode of Drama Alert from Keemstar. And yes, I actually watched an episode, which if you know me personally, you know I don't exactly normally do, but I feel like this is something that I'm quite annoyed with, so I want to finally address and put my voice out there because there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of just general bullshit drama that doesn't exactly need to exist. So, if you don't know what's going on, essentially every 6 months or once every year, there's this whole huge drama scandal, controversy, non-traversy, as Total Biscuit might say, about Machinima trapping someone in a contract and someone not being able to get out, and they go and attack Machinima, and everybody's like, oh, Machinima's evil, blah blah blah, and it keeps happening every year because people keep doing it because people are generally idiots, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to be approaching this from two sides, and I do feel I'm qualified to speak on this based on these two sides. A partner who has been ripped off not by Machinima, but by another contract in a similar fashion and who has seen, what goes on and experienced it firsthand. And two, as someone who actually works for a network, I work for Freedom, and I've seen and actually fought against internally a lot of the just really shady recruiting practices. And so I'm going to address that here. Now, first and foremost, you should always read a contract before you sign it, no matter what anyone says. If you sign it without reading it, as far as a lawyer, a scummy lawyer in a TV show is concerned, it's your fault. I mean, you signed it without reading it. They didn't change the contract on you. If they did that, you have an immediate lawsuit win on your hands. They didn't change your contract. If you go back and read the original PDF, what you signed said what they're enforcing upon you. And half of these cases just simply involve people who just don't want to be in the contract anymore and who just want to get out, which isn't really justification. Now, what Keemstar said is actually correct. You should never sign a contract that's more than a year. YouTube, digital media, the internet is a constantly changing and evolving idea, and from year to year, things drastically change. Machinima almost went bankrupt after a while, and apparently they have people, according to this Ross guy, in 5 to 10 year contracts, and that's just absurd. Machinima may not exist in 5 to 10 years. YouTube may not be what it is today in 5 to 10 years. Your life may not be what it is today in 5 to 10 years. There's no reason to sign a contract that's more than a year. There's plenty of networks. I'm not promoting any specific network. There's plenty of networks that offer no lock-in contracts whatsoever or a simple 1 year, let's renegotiate in a year contracts. That's what you should go with. That's what you should always go with. If a network tries to push a 2 to 3 to 4 year contract on you, just say no. Say you won't sign it unless it's only 1 year. So I've been a partner. My first. Well, actually, I have. Okay. So my first partnership was through Fullscreen with Yaush, and that was a huge drama thing. Yaush versus Machinima, whatever, back in the day. And then I got kind of stuck with them once once Yaush dissolved into the bigger Fullscreen and couldn't get out until actually this year, October of this year. That channel was still in Fullscreen. Part of that was my laziness. Part of that was just because it was an auto-renew contract. I was not told that back in 2011 or 2009, 2010. I don't fucking know. It was an auto-renew contract. I had no clue when the expiration date was, and no one could really tell me because it was all handled by people who didn't exist in that network anymore. And so that was an issue. And then my current main channel, Epos Vox, was partnered with RPM, which is now MakerGen, a small branch of Maker Studios. And it was the same thing. They gave me what I consider a highway robbery of a contract of 50-50 split, and then I was stuck in it for 2 years. So for the first 2 years of my channel's growth, when this channel actually developed well, and now it's actually doing decently well for sure, I was stuck only getting 50% of my money. And I couldn't get out because I wanted to find out if I could, not auto-renew it a day or two after the 30-day notice timeline. So there's that. I've been there. I know that frustration, and I had to stick it out for another year before I ended up actually switching to Freedom. because it's no lock-in. I pretty much won't do lock-in contracts at this point unless there's actual live-upable promises. And something you can look into if you do get in like a multi-year contract or a contract with a lock-in is I would negotiate some way to get out of it if you're not getting what you were promised. For example, if you're promised a personalized manager to work with your channel, help you grow, set up brand deals, and then within the first month or two, you're not getting any of that they're just like, okay, have fun, do YouTube, then you need a way to get out of that. That's perfectly acceptable. There's no reason that goes against what you agreed to. That's what you should work into the contract. But secondly, I've also dealt and seen, and I've talked to a lot of people who have been just flat out lied to, manipulated, and pressured by recruiters for networks, because recruiters for networks have only one bottom line. The more people they recruit, the more money they get. That's all that affects them, because they don't even handle YouTube support. They don't even handle anything within the network. They are just random people selected by sub-networks and networks to recruit to the bigger network and bring more partners on board. And the more partners they bring on board, the more money they get. They get a split of the network's cut of that partner's revenue, and it compounds, and they get more and more and more and more. And so they'll tell people whatever the hell they want for that. I've seen recruiting letters from networks that I've been in and from networks that I've worked with, and just from all networks, from recruiters saying they'll bring me $10 CPM on average. They'll, have a personalized, someone to help bring brand deals. They'll increase my growth by 50%, all this jazz that there's no way they could possibly deliver. And it's just there because it's for those random people who just be like, oh, that's great, I'll sign up for that right now, and don't ask any more questions. Now, in the case of this Ross guy, it seems like he put out, he didn't want to deal with that shit anymore, so he actually got in contact with one of the Machinima actual people, and they promised him all this stuff and didn't live up to it. So, again, there's still two sides. He signed the contract, which had all that information on it first. That's his fault. He didn't read it. He needed to have read it, and if you take one life lesson away from any of this, always read that contract. Secondly, that recruiter was a lying sack of shit. He was lying to him, manipulating him, and pressuring him to sign it before reading the actual contract. That's not okay. Or what it seems like is he omitted information. He was like, yeah, we can bump you up in revenue share, and then left out the part where, okay, but that means you also need to stick with it for 2 years. Now, there's a bit of a dramatization here that always gets brought up during this case, is his actual wording was, so I'm stuck in this prison cell of a contract for another 7 months. Well, if the terms worked out how you liked it in the first place when you agreed to all this, then sticking with it for another 7 months shouldn't be a problem. I don't understand why suddenly you just went out. Like, you don't give any reasons. No one ever gives any reasons why they suddenly went out at this arbitrary point in the middle of their contract. It's like they just have cold feet about it, and then they decide, okay, never mind, I want out, and then throw a huge hissy fit all over Twitter, YouTube, etc. about how they want out of their contract, and they can't get out because they signed a contract. Now, yes, he was lied to and manipulated and all this stuff, but frankly, it doesn't even seem like he was promised as much as some stuff that I've been promised by networks that I obviously didn't go with. So it's a really weird position because he's equally to blame as the recruiter, but as a company that is responsible for all of these different people being recruited and being stuck in contracts, they have a responsibility, a legal responsibility to not do this shit. And as PewDiePie said, I don't understand how they continue to get away with it. But I also, as Keemstar said, I don't understand how people keep going for contracts with them. I mean, flat out at this point, don't go for a contract with Machinima unless you work there. Plain and simple. So, always read your contract. Always read it. Have an attorney read it. And that's actually the best way to get back at Machinima. You really want to get back at Machinima for doing this to you? Don't throw a huge hissy fit all over YouTube and Twitter and shit. Contact an attorney silently, explain your situation, and presuming you're not making shit up, they can actually go after Machinima with a solid case. Going after them on YouTube and Twitter and stuff just means that you look like a child throwing a hissy fit over something you agreed to and you no longer want to do, and that actually weakens any actual legal case you might have. And so it's a really weird issue because I don't want to be that person because I don't usually agree with those things. But this is one of those things where this generation, keep in mind I'm in this generation, it is way too quick to just publicly throw a fit to try to get things done instead of doing things the right way. If you have a legal issue with a legal contract, you contact a legal representative. You don't go on Drama Alert. Or same thing with, I guess, others as they go on radio shows and talk shows. No, you go through a lawyer. Why is that so difficult to understand? A talk show isn't going to fix your issues for it. Dr. Phil isn't going to fix your issues for you. Keemstar isn't going to fix your issues for you. And it's no longer a thing that needs brought to light because it should be common sense for everybody at this point. Read your contract. Don't sign more than 1 year contracts in the first place. Don't go with Machinima at all. And one last bit is those contracts explicitly state that you cannot share the details of your contracts or discussions relating to your contracts. Now, obviously, you could share that with a lawyer. NDAs don't, go to doctors or lawyers. You could still do that if you were suing them. But publicly screen capping the email where they offered to give you a higher revenue share or whatever on Twitter violated that contract. You could actually get sued for it, for breaking the NDA. Same thing with going on Keemstar's show or anybody's show and talking about all this, making a public video bashing the network based on the private NDA blocked details of your contract. You have no case, which is why this probably keeps coming up, is because when you do that, you can't go to a lawyer anymore. You just gave up your case because you just sacrificed any actual power you had over him. So really over Machinima. So you kind of screw yourself over when you do that. I don't know. Like I said, they are both equally to blame. He's equally to blame for not reading his contract. This dude's equally to blame for lying to him. The recruiter was equally to blame for lying to him and manipulating him into it. But read your contract. So I do pose a thing to anyone who manages networks is you need to have strict regulations and monitoring of all recruiting contacts. Like there needs to be tracked evidence of every recruiting email sent. That needs to be in place. And networks need to be held accountable for their recruiters, and they get away with it because it's just someone who signed up with an affiliate link. We're not responsible for what he does. Yes, you fucking are. Fix it now, and that will fix a lot of the problems. These are just my thoughts. This one a little bit longer than I wanted. Just wanted to rant a bit about this and share my kind of unique perspective because again, I'm both a partner with networks and I work for one, and I've fought against a lot of this recruiting bullshit. So thanks for watching. See you later. Peace.